The council chamber of the Galactic Alliance was filled with echoes of laughter. Proud alien commanders sat in their tall chairs of crystal and steel, their jeweled robes shining under the pale lights of the station. To them, this was another day of amusement. Before them stood a group of human diplomats, tense but holding their ground, and behind them, hidden in the shadows, was a young engineer who said nothing, only listening. The aliens had gathered to witness humanity's latest invention, a small warship unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. It was not large. It was not covered in heavy armor. It did not carry the massive cannons that other fleets used to destroy planets. Instead, it looked almost fragile, like a machine built for a child's toy room. The alien leaders sneered at it. "Is this what Earth brings to our council?" One admiral with silver skin mocked. His voice carried across the chamber like cold iron. "A ship no larger than our transports. A toy against the weapons of the galaxy." Laughter followed. The sound rolled through the air, sharp and cruel. Another alien, his body covered in scales of green, tapped his claws against the table. Perhaps they built it to impress their children. Perhaps this is a joke. The human diplomats tried to explain, tried to defend the project, but their words were drowned out. The alien empires had ruled the stars for thousands of years. They believed they had seen everything. They believed nothing new could challenge them. To them, Earth was still young, still learning, still crawling among the stars. But in the shadows of the chamber, the engineer stayed silent. His name was Ethan Cole. His hands were rough from long nights of work, his eyes dark with sleepless determination. He did not care about the insults. He did not care about the laughter. He knew the truth. He had built something the galaxy was not ready for, something that would change war forever. As the laughter echoed, Ethan's mind drifted back to the day it all began. He remembered standing inside the hidden laboratory deep under Earth's surface, surrounded by glowing screens and humming machines. For months he had worked alone, solving problems that others said were impossible. Power sources too unstable, energy shields that collapsed under stress, engines that could not bend physics. But he had solved them, piece by piece, like a puzzle only he could see. He remembered the moment the prototype came alive for the first time, its engines humming with a sound that felt more alive than machine. He had whispered to himself that day, "They will laugh now, but they won't laugh forever." Now, standing in the chamber as the alien admirals mocked, he could feel the weight of those words pressing against his chest. He wanted to shout at them, to tell them they were blind, but he stayed quiet. He knew the battlefield would be his answer. The meeting ended with more laughter and ridicule. The alien leaders dismissed the humans and returned to their feasts, confident in their power. But war was coming. On the far edge of the galaxy, an enemy fleet was gathering, a threat that even the Alliance feared. Humanity had offered their invention for the coming battle, but the aliens had mocked and refused. Back on Earth, Ethan stood in the hangar of the prototype ship. The vessel looked small compared to the massive alien dreadnoughts, but its smooth hull shimmered with hidden power. Engineers moved around it nervously, whispering doubts. Even some humans believed the aliens that this machine could not stand against the giants of the galaxy. But Ethan placed his hand on the cold metal and smiled faintly. "You'll show them," he whispered. "You'll show them all." Days later, the stars burned with the fire of war. The alien coalition had sent their fleets to meet the enemy. Thousands of ships, armed with weapons that could rip moons apart. Humanity had only one contribution: Ethan's invention. A single ship, a single chance. As the fleets clashed in the void, Ethan sat inside the command deck of his creation. The hum of the engines vibrated through his bones. The enemy was coming. Massive warships moving like steel mountains through space. Alien commanders laughed again, confident the human ship would be the first to fall. But Ethan's hands moved across the controls, calm and steady. His invention came alive, its systems awakening one by one, glowing with strange light. The scanners screamed with warnings. The enemy was locking weapons. The human diplomats watching from the sidelines held their breath. Ethan whispered only one thing. Now, let's begin. The ship vanished in a flash of light. Not destroyed, not broken, but moving faster than any sensor could follow. Alien eyes widened, their laughter freezing in their throats. A single human invention had just broken the laws of their universe, and in that moment, fear began to crawl into their hearts. The battle was only starting, but already the galaxy would never be the same. The alien fleet spread across the stars like a sea of fire. Thousands of ships armed with weapons that had crushed empires drifted in tight formation. Their commanders felt no fear, only arrogance. They believed victory was already written. They believed humanity's small prototype would vanish in the first exchange of fire. Yet on the human ship, the atmosphere was different. Inside the control deck, Ethan Cole sat in the captain's chair, his hand steady on the controls. The ship hummed around him, alive with power. He could feel it. Every circuit, every engine pulse, every flicker of the shields. To him, this machine was not just a weapon. It was his child, his creation, his answer to centuries of mockery. Alarms flashed. Enemy lock-on detected. Red lights burned across the deck. The alien fleet was ready to fire. Ethan's crew, young and nervous, exchanged worried glances. Some whispered prayers, others clenched their fists. They had all heard the laughter, the insults, the doubts. Now they carried the burden of proving every voice wrong. "Ethan," the young navigator said, her voice trembling. "They're preparing a full barrage. If we stay here, we won't stay." Ethan interrupted, his tone calm but sharp. His eyes never left the stars. "We move." The command triggered the ship's heart. The engines roared, not like any sound the galaxy had ever known, but like thunder breaking through silence. The ship surged forward faster than scanners could trace, bending light itself. The alien fleet fired in unison, beams of energy brighter than suns, missiles streaking through the void, a storm meant to erase the human ship in a single breath. But when the light cleared, the ship was gone, not destroyed, not broken, gone. Alien commanders shouted in confusion. Their scanners spun wildly, unable to track the prototype. Then, in an instant, the ship appeared again, behind their formation. It had moved faster than anything in recorded history, faster than physics should allow. Ethan's lips curled into the faintest smile. Let's see if they're still laughing. The ship's weapon systems awakened, but they were not the heavy cannons the aliens expected. They were something else, something new. A pulse of energy, silent and invisible, rippled through the void. At first, the aliens felt nothing. Then their ships began to fail. Shields flickered, engines coughed and died. Control systems froze. The proud warships that had dominated the stars for centuries were now helpless, drifting like toys in a storm. One alien admiral roared with disbelief. "Impossible! No weapon can cut through our defenses like this." But Ethan knew the truth. His invention did not fight the enemy head-on. It reached deeper, striking at the very heart of their technology. Where the aliens had built walls of fire, Ethan had built a blade of silence. Inside the human ship, the crew gasped as they watched the mighty fleet falter. Ships collided, powerless to steer. Explosions lit the darkness as reactors failed. And, still, the alien commanders could not believe what they saw. "This is not war," one shouted, his voice shaking. "This is sorcery." But it was not sorcery. It was engineering. Human engineering. The enemy, however, was far from defeated. Thousands of ships still remained, and though fear had begun to spread, arrogance still held strong. Alien admirals rallied their fleets, commanding backup systems, deploying weapons not used in centuries. Giant dreadnoughts, larger than cities, emerged from the shadows, their weapons glowing with energy that could rip planets apart. Ethan's crew felt the weight of those ships pressing down on them. The navigator whispered, "Sir, they're bringing everything they have. We can't fight them all." Ethan's eyes narrowed. He had expected this. The prototype was powerful, but it was only one ship. To defeat the galaxy's greatest armada would take more than speed and silence. It would take strategy. It would take courage. He leaned forward, voice steady. We don't need to fight them all. We just need to show them what's possible. The ship surged forward again, weaving through enemy lines like a ghost. Every time the aliens fired, it vanished, slipping through their sights. Every time they tried to trap it, it reappeared where they least expected, cutting through their ranks. Ethan's invention was not just surviving, it was rewriting the meaning of battle. Yet even as victories mounted, Ethan felt the pressure tightening. Every maneuver pushed the ship closer to its limits. Every pulse of its weapon drained power faster than the systems could recover. The invention was powerful, yes, but it was also fragile. He had built it in secret, with limited resources, under constant risk. He knew it could not hold forever. Still, he pressed on, because this battle was not just about survival. It was about proving a truth the galaxy had forgotten, that the smallest spark of human will could outshine the mightiest empire. Outside, the dreadnoughts prepared their final strike, their weapons charged, light flooding across the battlefield. The galaxy held its breath, and Ethan Cole whispered to himself, now, they will see. The battlefield burned with dying stars. Alien warships, once symbols of unshakable power, now floated broken and silent, torn apart by a single human invention. But the battle was far from over. On the horizon of space, the dreadnoughts prepared their final strike, monsters of steel, the size of continents, armed with weapons that had destroyed civilizations long before humanity learned to build fire. The alien commanders barked their orders with fury. Their laughter had ended. Now there was only rage, desperation, and fear. They would not allow one human ship to humiliate them before the galaxy. Inside the prototype, Ethan Cole sat in silence, the glow of his screens painting his face in pale light. His crew shifted nervously, their eyes locked on the dreadnoughts ahead. The navigator whispered, "Sir, if they fire together, even we can't dodge it." Ethan did not answer immediately. His mind raced, weighing calculations, probabilities, risks. He knew she was right. The prototype had speed, it had precision, it had weapons unlike anything in the galaxy, but it was still only one ship. Against this many dreadnoughts, they would eventually be cornered. Unless, his hand hovered over a hidden control, one no one else on the crew had ever touched. He had built the invention with secrets even his closest allies did not know. To reveal them now would change everything. Not just this battle, but the future of humanity. "Sir?" The navigator pressed again. Ethan finally spoke, his voice steady but heavy. "It's time." He pressed the control. The ship shuddered. The hum of the engines deepened, a sound like a heartbeat echoing across the void. Lights along the hull flickered, then glowed with a brilliance that turned the dark of space into day. The crew shielded their eyes. The aliens stared in disbelief. And then, reality bent. The prototype unfolded, not physically, but as if the space around it had been rewritten. Energy shields warped into shapes no scanner could understand. The engines twisted light, bending space itself around the ship. Weapons that looked like nothing more than smooth panels on the hull began to glow with strange symbols, ancient and new at the same time. The dreadnoughts fired. Beams of energy brighter than suns, enough to crack planets, shot forward. The galaxy trembled. But when the beams reached the human ship, they did not destroy it. They bent around it, curved like rivers flowing past a stone. The alien admirals shouted in horror, "Impossible! No shield can bend reality itself." But Ethan had built more than a shield. He had built something the galaxy had never dared to imagine. His voice was calm as he whispered to his crew, "This isn't defense. This is evolution." The ship struck back. A pulse of pure silence rippled through the void. No sound, no explosion, just silence so deep it felt alive. The nearest dreadnought froze, its weapons dimming, its engines shutting down, its crew screaming in helplessness as the ship's very systems collapsed. The silence spread like a shadow, consuming one warship after another, shutting them down without a single shot fired. The galaxy had always believed war was about firepower, about who could build the largest cannons, the thickest armor, the strongest fleets. Ethan's invention proved them wrong. War was no longer about who could strike hardest. It was about who could rewrite the rules of the battlefield. On the command decks of alien ships, panic turned into terror. Some tried to retreat. Others fired wildly, but nothing struck true. Their scanners could not track the human ship. Their weapons could not harm it. Their defenses could not stop it. For the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy's greatest fleets realized they were powerless. Inside the prototype, Ethan's crew sat in stunned silence. They had seen weapons before, guns, missiles, lasers, but nothing like this. One crewman whispered, his voice trembling, What did you build, Ethan?" Ethan's eyes stayed fixed on the stars. "I didn't just build a ship, I built the future." But even as victory grew closer, Ethan felt the strain on the ship. The core pulsed dangerously, energy levels spiking beyond safe limits. Every maneuver pushed the systems to breaking. His invention was not invincible. It was powerful, yes, but it carried a cost. Still, he pressed forward. He had no choice. This was not just about saving humanity. This was about showing the galaxy a truth it had long forgotten, that the smallest, weakest species could rise and break the giants. The silence pulse spread again, and another dreadnought died. Then another. Alien commanders screamed, their fleets scattering in chaos. The council that had once mocked humanity now watched in horror. Their laughter had turned into silence. Their arrogance had turned into fear. And in the center of it all, one human engineer whispered into the void, "Now you see. You mocked us, but you will remember this day forever." The revelation was complete. Humanity had not only entered galactic war, they had changed it. Forever. But as the last enemy dreadnought fell dark, Ethan's warning lights flared red. The ship's core was unstable, trembling with too much power. Victory was theirs, but the true danger was only beginning. The silence of victory did not last long. The battlefield was littered with the wreckage of fallen dreadnoughts, their glowing hulls now drifting like broken bones in the endless dark. For a brief moment, the galaxy stood frozen, staring at the impossible. The greatest armada brought low by a single human invention. But silence soon gave way to something more dangerous than laughter. Rage. Across the alien fleets, surviving, admirals gathered their forces, their voices trembling not with arrogance but with desperation. "We cannot lose to one ship. We are the guardians of the galaxy. Crush them, no matter the cost." And so, they unleashed everything. From the edges of the battlefield, hidden reserves emerged, ships the size of moons, vessels so ancient they were said to be built when stars were young. Weapons older than empires glowed awake, their power strong enough to bend planets into dust. These were not warships for ordinary battles. They were weapons of extinction. Inside the prototype, alarms blared. Ethan's crew watched in horror as their scanners lit up with readings beyond anything they had trained for. One whispered, "Those are planet killers." The navigator turned pale. "Sir, if they fire, there will be no battlefield left. Not for us, not for anyone." Ethan said nothing at first. His hand tightened on the armrest, eyes locked on the impossible storm gathering ahead. He knew the invention was powerful, but this was different. The alien fleets had abandoned honor, abandoned pride. They would burn everything just to erase humanity's proof. They would destroy themselves, Ethan muttered, almost to himself, all to hide the truth. The crew looked at him, fear growing in their eyes. "Then what do we do?" Ethan stared at the screens, mind racing. He had built the ship to win battles, yes, but he had also built it with something greater in mind. A final safeguard, hidden deep in its heart. A function he had never tested, a function so dangerous he had sworn he would never use it. But now, the galaxy was leaving him no choice. The alien armada charged its doomsday weapons. The stars themselves seemed to tremble under their power. The battlefield glowed brighter than 1,000 suns, a light that promised the end of everything. Ethan closed his eyes for a breath. Then he gave the order. Prepare the core. Override the limiters. The crew gasped. Sir, that could kill us. His gaze turned sharp, his voice steady. If we don't, they'll kill not just us, but Earth, humanity, everything we are. The ship obeyed. Its hum deepened into a roar, like the heartbeat of a giant waking from its sleep. Energy rippled across its hull, bending the very stars around it. Lights flared inside the cockpit, bathing Ethan and his crew in a blinding glow. The alien commanders watched in shock as the human prototype changed again. "What are they doing?" one shouted. "It's unstable. It should destroy itself." But the ship did not destroy itself. It evolved. The Invention's core unleashed power no one had imagined, a surge of energy that wrapped around the battlefield, swallowing the enemy's doomsday beams before they could fire. The light bent, twisted, and vanished, absorbed into silence. Then the silence struck back. A wave of energy burst outward, invisible yet unstoppable. It passed through enemy ships like a shadow, shutting them down one by one. The ancient war vessels, built to destroy planets, fell silent, their weapons dimming, their engines cold. One after another they drifted powerless, reduced to monuments of failure. But inside the prototype, Ethan felt the cost. The ship shook violently, alarms screaming in red. Systems overloaded, circuits burned. He gritted his teeth, forcing the controls to obey. He had given the galaxy a miracle, but at the risk of burning himself alive in the process. The navigator cried out, "Sir, the core is breaching. We can't hold this much power." Ethan's voice was calm, though his body trembled. "We will hold, because if we break now, humanity's future breaks with us." The silence pulse spread wider, and the battlefield grew darker. Once proud fleets floated powerless, their admirals staring in disbelief. They had thrown everything, armies, dreadnoughts, planet killers, and still one human invention stood unbroken. Yet deep in their fear, a new thought grew. If humanity had built this, what else could they build? If one engineer could humble the galaxy, what would happen when an entire world of engineers followed his path? Inside the council chambers, the alien leaders who had mocked Earth sat in silence, watching the feet of their fleets collapsing. Their arrogance melted into dread. They had mocked a toy. Now they stared at the weapon that rewrote war itself. But on the prototype, Ethan knew the truth. This was not victory yet. The ship's core pulsed wildly, the systems at their edge. One wrong move and his invention would tear itself apart. Still, he whispered to himself, "This is the turning point. They will never see us the same again." And for the first time in galactic history, the empires of the stars felt a truth they had never known before: fear of humanity. But even as they feared, Ethan realized something darker. The war was not ending. It was only beginning. The battlefield was silent now. Where once the stars had burned with fire and destruction, only wreckage remained, hulks of alien warships drifting like tombstones in the void. The silence was not victory's song. It was something heavier, something the galaxy had never felt before. At the center of it all floated the human prototype, its hull cracked and scarred, glowing faintly with the last embers of power. Inside, the crew sat in silence, too stunned to speak. Their ship had survived. Against impossible odds, against the greatest armada in known history, they had stood unbroken. But the price was clear. Warning lights still flashed across the consoles, the core pulsing dangerously as if on the edge of collapse. One wrong move, one surge too many, and the invention might burn itself out forever. Ethan Cole sat in the captain's chair, shoulders heavy with exhaustion. His hands trembled against the controls. Sweat clung to his brow, but his eyes burned with a strange calm. He had done what he came to do. The galaxy was no longer laughing. The galaxy was watching. Across alien space, transmissions poured in. Admirals who had once mocked him now whispered in disbelief. Councils that had sneered at humanity now sat in fearful silence. Messages spread across every world, every star system, carrying a single truth. Humanity was no longer weak. Humanity had changed war itself, and yet fear was not the only thing spreading. Anger followed, resentment. The empires that had ruled for millennia would not forget this humiliation. They would not forgive. Even now, in hidden chambers, alien leaders whispered of retaliation. They spoke of extermination, of ending humanity, before its sparks turned into a wildfire. Inside the prototype, the crew celebrated quietly, tears of relief mixing with joy, but Ethan did not celebrate. He sat in silence, his gaze fixed on the stars beyond the shattered battlefield. He knew what was coming. One crewman finally spoke, breaking the silence. "Sir, we did it. We beat them." Ethan's lips curled into a faint smile, but his voice was heavy. "No, we showed them, and now they'll never stop coming." The navigator frowned. "Then, what happens now?" Ethan leaned back in his chair, his eyes dark but steady. "Now they will prepare. They will build new fleets, stronger weapons. They will unite against us. And when they come, humanity must be ready." The word spread through the crew like a chill. The victory felt less like an ending and more like the opening of a door that could never be closed again. Back on Earth, the news of the battle shook the planet. Cities erupted with celebration, people crying out in pride, their voices echoing across oceans. For the first time in history, humanity stood as equals among the stars. No longer mocked, no longer underestimated. The invention had given them respect. Respect earned in fire and blood. But in the shadows of that pride, leaders on Earth listened carefully to Ethan's warning. They knew this victory had painted a target on their world. The galaxy would not forgive humiliation. And so, preparations began. Factories thundered, laboratories glowed with new experiments, fleets of prototypes were ordered. Humanity, once a scattered species, now stood united by fear and hope. And in every council chamber of the galaxy, Ethan's name was spoken with unease. To some, he was a monster. To others, a genius. To all, he was a symbol of something they had long forgotten. How dangerous a single mind could be when pushed to the edge. The alien empires sent secret envoys, desperate to understand the invention. Some begged for alliances, others plotted in shadows. All feared the same truth, that one engineer had rewritten war. On the bridge of his battered ship, Ethan Cole looked at the stars one last time before shutting down the failing core. His voice was soft, but his words carried the weight of prophecy. "They mocked us once," he whispered. "They'll never mock us again. But the war they feared, it's coming, and when it does, humanity will not stand alone. Humanity will lead." The crew listened, silent and awed. They knew this was not just the story of one battle. It was the beginning of a new age. And so, across the galaxy, legends were born. Of the day when one human engineer defied the empires. Of the invention that silenced fleets. Of the moment the galaxy realized that Earth was not weak, it was rising. But in the quiet of his own heart, Ethan knew the truth. He had not built the invention to win glory nor to win respect. He had built it because he believed humanity was meant for more. Not to be ruled, not to be mocked, but to stand as creators, innovators, dreamers among the stars. The galaxy would remember his name. They would remember the fear. They would remember the silence. And as the stars burned on, one truth became certain. The age of human engineers had begun.